Hi, welcome to Pamela Price Unfiltered. I'm your host, Pamela Price, and this is the space and the place for real talk. This podcast is all about raw, unfiltered conversations on politics, law, culture, education, systemic racism, and current events shaping our world. My goal is to help you navigate the complexities of today's world. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel to watch the show and to my Substack to read the weekly word. Your support keeps the conversation raw and unfiltered. And you can also listen to Pamela Price Unfiltered wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome to the show. Let's talk about it. My special guest today is Magybet Mendez. Miss Mendez is a seasoned expert in immigration and business management. She founded Amigo LA in 2019 to champion immigrant rights and community empowerment. She was inspired by her parents' journey and the urgent needs of her community. Imago is rooted in values of trust, integrity, and effective communication. It aims to uplift undocumented individuals. It offers advocacy, education, access to legal support, and tailored resources, providing families with tools, knowledge, and pathways to thrive. Welcome to Pamela Price Unfiltered, Magybet.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the introduction as well.
Yes, of course. You are a powerful advocate, and we've heard of your work statewide of what you're doing to fight against the unlawful invasion in Los Angeles. So tell my audience, what was it about your personal journey that, as an immigrant, that inspired and influenced the work you're doing now?
I think having firsthand experience as an immigrant made me who I am. I was inspired to start Amigo because I felt like we still needed more resources, more nonprofits doing this work. And I do come from an immigrant family. I am now, thankfully, in a mixed status home with its own challenges, but the story behind Amigo comes from personal experience as an immigrant.
When you say a mixed status home, what do you mean by that?
Mixed status homes are homes composed of both undocumented immigrants and also people who have now naturalized and became US citizens, or even have green cards and have lawful permanent status. So when we think about a population as big as LA, there's so many mixed status families. So it is affecting also the the US citizens in this country. It's very rare if you don't know an immigrant in LA.
Well, we have the same situation in Alameda County where 53% of our population people live with someone who speaks a second language or who may not have their, may be undocumented or have, a visa. So we're one of the most diverse counties as well as Los Angeles. So we understand that. You are a DACA person. So tell my audience, what does it mean to be a DACA child?
Okay, so DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It means that I am deferred, so protected from deportation. And the other portion of DACA means that you get to work here legally. So this path toward a work permit was only introduced during Obama administration through great pressure from those on the ground doing advocacy and civil disobedience actions. And I like to say that when I introduce DACA because so many of the youth that grew up with DACA don't really realize that this was the way that we received it. That we had to fight hard for it. It wasn't willingly given; it was demanded.
Right, right. So many of our rights are demanded. So once you got the right to work, you had some experience working for a law firm. Tell my audience about that.
Yeah, I was working running, a law firm isn't easy, but I feel it almost feels like destiny at this point where I gained experience from helping my dad manage his LLC, gain experience from managing a firm, being a senior paralegal in the field, and being really passionate about it. I think even off of the clock, I was like really just nerding on like what this means, what could we do better, and so it all really just came down to experience at the end of the day. And I think when I think of Amigo, I didn't start from zero, like I thought before. Younger me, because I was only 26 when I started Amigo, thought I was starting from zero, but really I was starting from experience. And I think it meant everything at that moment, you know. I may have not had the money or the funds, but I did have the knowledge and skills. And so a lot of what you see, Amigo's website, social media content, like, you know, the structure of it, the templates, everything was built off of the knowledge that I had.
So, what were some of the challenges that you saw people having to try to gain citizenship or get their status when they were dealing with the private law firm?
So I think it was really difficult for me to see the ridiculous amount of fees. There was contracts of thousands and thousands of dollars. You know, we're talking about 10,000, 15,000, and some rare occasions 20, or you finish paying a 5,000, 6,000, $7,000 contract. There comes another contract, right? And so it was fees on top of fees, is what I felt. And hearing the stories of my community, two examples that I like to use is, you know, I met a family who was picking up cans just to meet their legal fees monthly. I met, you know, a woman who was selling tamales. She was basically making food on the side so she could pay for her attorney fees. And these are the stories of so many, especially right now. I think like right now, the who's saving community is other community members donating to GoFundMe's, raising money, having food posts. And so this is still very relevant today, I think, where the low income communities cannot afford legal fees. And I just thought there should be a easier way of doing this where we don't charge the fees that a private firm charges.
So even the private firm, even if they're and my understanding is that the government expenses, there are still fees that you have to pay to the government, you know, for these processes. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So there is government fees, there's legal fees, there's immigration medical exam fees, and then sometimes even immigration evaluations from therapists and psychologists. So when you add all those things together, it sometimes becomes unattainable for some people. And so we're working really hard for it to be accessible.
So, Magybet, you all have been under siege, military invasion since June by Homeland Security, and they say they're not leaving. They came to liberate the city. What does it feel like and look like to be under military siege?
Well, it's definitely a roller coaster. There's some days where I feel angry, there's other days where I feel sad. It comes with a lot of weight. I think as a founder of a nonprofit, I get to experience the stories and hear the community's worries, their sadness, their anger, their frustration. You know, this is a very traumatic thing for many of us. Some individuals leave their home countries avoiding this type of, you know, overstep of power. They avoid this because they don't want to be treated the way that they're being treated right now. And so it's really sad to see, but it's also very scary in the sense that now we're seeing also the violation of rights, not just to undocumented immigrants, but to US citizens, to legal permanent residents, to relatives that are like, you know, just trying to figure out what to do when somebody is detained, arrested unlawfully. And so it's just a very sad situation. But also, I think there is a way for us to work together and empower each other to do more.
So the that my understanding is that there are target areas that are now been authorized by the US Supreme Court. If you don't look white, then and you're in a target area, then they can stop you. What are you seeing on the ground with that?
So I think that right now ICE is targeting the most vulnerable groups, that being day laborers and domestic workers. We're seeing gardeners, disappear from front yards. We're seeing street vendors abandon carts. Street vendors selling, street vendors for years have been selling in the same street post, and now they're gone and their carts get left behind. There's day labor centers that are being in what it feels attacked. And when we see that they're going into these vulnerable communities, it's very obvious that they know that they don't have enough financial resources to pay for an attorney or find the help they need.
Yeah. You had one of your nonprofit volunteers or a staff member who was actually, and who is a US citizen, was actually detained and moved around by ICE. Tell us about that.
So we know of a member of a nonprofit at the Van Nuys Labor Center who was taken by ICE and who is a U.S. citizen. He has been released, but it was wrong to begin with, and it did happen. And we saw it unfold. We had volunteers there that were helping that specific site, which is a nonprofit as well. And when we see that happening in our communities, I feel like it should worry all of us. This is everyone's problem, not just undocumented immigrants. Our violations are being stepped on.
Right. Well, we know from history, first they came for those people and I said nothing. And then they came for those people and I said nothing. And then they came for those people and I said nothing. And then when they came for me, there was no one left. Right. That's what history teaches us about this kind of fascism spreading through our country. So you started this, what, 2019? You put your heart and soul in it. And what does Amigo LA look like for you in 2025? What are you guys doing?
In 2025, Amigo is looking bright. We have a lot of artwork on our walls, recognition, certificates. So our work is being acknowledged and we're really grateful for it. But at the end of the day, what really matters is that the people that come into our space feel safe. They feel welcome, they feel loved, they feel supported. And we work really hard to allocate resources properly. We want to make sure that people feel that they are getting the right help, that we're being honest, that they're treated with dignity and respect. And at the end of the day, that means the world to us. We hope Amigo continues to grow. Today, Amigo operates with two other sites, one being Long Beach and Riverside.
So you have three locations.
So there's now three locations, and we're hoping to go mobile soon because we know that the raids aren't going to stop. People who are even legally in this country are scared to file citizenship. So we want to make sure that they get the help they need and they really, just take that step to file for U.S. citizenship because it could make a difference in the future. We are we're holding on to this big voting power that we are still haven't reached its potential yet.
Yeah. What are some of the signature services that you offer for immigrants?
So we have civics education classes, teaching people who hold their green cards are ready to take the step to U.S. citizenship, their rights and responsibilities. We teach them about checks and balances. It's very interesting to see immigrants learning about these subjects, especially now, because I think they themselves start questioning a lot of the things that are happening. And they're like, well, this is wrong. Like, how come there isn't this branch, right? Checking in on this branch. And so it's a very interesting time to teach them about civic duties and responsibilities and everything about history because of what we're going through today. But these classes are free and it brings community together. It makes them feel confident. The other service is application assistance. We have Know Your Rights workshops, personal and professional development. The personal and professional development is really important to us because we know that most people really don't have a pathway. We haven't had a pathway since, Ronald Reagan days, amnesty days. And so a lot of the people that do have status are now aging and like we haven't had it for years. And so we know that some people are just left undocumented. So what is left is for us to empower them, make sure that, they feel inspired to start their own business and know what to do, right? In case of an emergency.
So you're also catering to folks that have small businesses, as I understand it.
Yes, so we try to help them and teach them about DBAs, LLCs, and the power that an EIN number holds if they want to go into that route. We also know that immigrants are the fastest growing group in terms of small businesses. And I think that's a powerful thing to think about, but not enough of us know that power.
Right, right. You also have a network of support and resources. Tell us how you developed that, because I've been told that's one of the key features of the work that you're doing in Los Angeles.
So we are fortunate enough to have partners that we collaborate with and have access to in a referral platform that we created ourselves. We partner with people that also support our work and vice versa. And this means, navigational centers if somebody needs emergency shelter, domestic violence shelters, if somebody needs a place to shower, store things, is an example. And right now, especially, right, people are being released with practically nothing, and so not everyone, some people are being released, but when they are, it's nice for them to know where to go. Um, I've heard terrible stories of them not even having money to pay for a payphone, right? And where do you find the payphones these days anyway? But there is a lot going on in our communities. And I think when we have, partners that do free tax services, that do, help them with TIN numbers and other things, we all become part of this like force of good.
Excellent, excellent. Well, on that note, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for being a force of good and for good with the situation in Los Angeles, and certainly those of us in Northern California are watching and hope to be of support to you as much as we can be. We know that ICE will be here soon enough, and so all of us need to learn from the experiences of those on the front lines. So thank you for joining me on Pamela Price Unfiltered.
Thank you, Pamela. I really appreciate you and your team for having me.
All right, take care. Welcome to Legally Speaking. In June 2025, as we all know, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem led an invasion of Los Angeles with armed and masked ICE agents, along with other federal agents and the National Guard. According to Secretary Noem, they came to liberate Los Angeles.
We are not going away. We are staying here to liberate this city from the socialist and the burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country, and what they have tried to insert into this.
And they're not leaving. Some of the first victims of the invasion and a number of nonprofits sued, claiming they were racially profiled. The lead plaintiffs were all arrested at bus stops. One plaintiff was detained at a tow yard where he was working on his car, even after he told ICE agents that he was a U.S. citizen. One man, also a U.S. citizen, was grabbed at a car wash and interrogated by ICE agents. The only basis for his detention was his brown skin and his presence at a car wash. The lawsuit claims that these raids by armed and masked ICE agents violates the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution because it is based on racial profiling. What Los Angeles, Chicago, New York City, D.C., Philadelphia, Phoenix, Portland, Atlanta, Miami, Denver, and multiple cities across Texas are experiencing are military-style raids with armed and masked men armed with handguns and military rifles descending on churches, schools, work sites, bus stops, car wash parks, farms, and detaining anybody who does not look clearly Caucasian. Detaining people in what the government calls Operation at Large involves force. Armed agents running up and tackling people, pushing and manhandling folks, handcuffing people, using tear gas to distract bystanders, taking people to another location for questioning before releasing them, or holding them in detention indefinitely. The government's motto is seize first and ask questions later. These Gestapo tactics will either result in a significant number of people being seized and potentially injured, some of them incarcerated, some of them deported. And it's going to scare a whole lot of undocumented folks who are not criminals, but they have to self deport because of the fear of being kidnapped on the street, incarcerated, and then deported. These Gestapo raids are essentially open season on Latinos. If you look Latino and want to go to school, to work, to church, or be anywhere outside in America today, you better have your U.S. passport on you at all times. The quotas of arrests that Stephen Miller originally set at 300 per day is now up to 1,200 to 1,500 per day. Under the old law, INS agents had the right to, quote, briefly detain someone for questioning if they had a reasonable suspicion based on specific facts that they could articulate that the person being questioned is in the country illegally. A federal district court judge hearing the case said, stop, this sounds illegal. Donald Trump appealed to the Ninth Circuit, then to the United States Supreme Court. He asked the Ninth Circuit for a stay of the order, and they denied his request. The United States Supreme Court then stepped in an emergency decision and granted a stay of the district court's order. The Supreme Court decided the case on something called the shadow docket. That's where a case gets decided by the highest court in the land with limited briefing, no public hearing, no official opinion of the court, and without identifying the justices who voted for or against the stay. While the case is not legally over and will be pending for years, as a practical matter, it's done. The Supreme Court basically said that ICE can continue to violate the Fourth Amendment until the appeal is over. And then, if it makes it to the Supreme Court, they will probably rule in favor of the government. Under the new rule approved by the Supreme Court, ICE agents can seize, detain, and question anyone who looks like they might be Latino in Los Angeles and presumably in other cities as they move on, if they are at a bus stop, a car wash, park, day laborer, pickup sites, tow yards, or a farm, if they speak Spanish or English with an accent, if they work in day labor, landscaping, agriculture, or construction, if they look like they might be Latino. The Supreme Court has essentially created second-class citizenship for anyone of Latino descent. Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh says that they took the unusual step of granting a stay on the emergency docket for three reasons. Number one, the plaintiffs are going to lose the case if it ever makes it to the Supreme Court, because in his view, the plaintiffs don't have the right for an order, the right to ask for an order that might protect them or others in the future. He said they don't have standing, meaning you are not the right person to make the claim. Under Justice Kavanaugh's view, no court can act to stop unconstitutional police misconduct before it happens, only after the fact in certain cases. The district court found that the government has admitted that these raids are going to continue, and therefore the plaintiffs might be subjected to the same intrusion on their lives in the future. But the Supreme Court basically ignored that evidence. Justice Kavanaugh says that they granted the stay because the district court's injunction would interfere with the government's efforts to prioritize stricter enforcement of the immigration laws, and therefore the government would suffer irreparable harm. When you're talking about irreparable harm, you have to consider the interests of all the parties. According to Justice Kavanaugh, they considered the interest of people who entered the country illegally and those residents, legal U.S. citizens who might be briefly detained, and they held that neither group had a substantial interest against the government's right to target and detain Latinos who meet those four factors that are based on racial profiling. Once upon a time in America, there was a constitution. The Constitution had something in it called the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment was intended to prevent arbitrary and oppressive interference by law enforcement officials with the privacy and personal security of every resident. That Fourth Amendment was at the heart of the belief that America is a free country. Not anymore. Thanks for tuning in to Pamela Price Unfiltered. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And please sign up as a founding member or a paid subscriber to my Substack newsletter to get the weekly word from Pamela Price Unfiltered. And you can also listen to Pamela Price Unfiltered wherever you get your podcasts.